Well, I think I have other means of transportation, so it really doesn't affect me quite as severely as it may a few other people.
How often do you take the train?
Every day.
What would it mean to you if they walk tonight at midnight?
I'd have to find another way to get to work tomorrow.
The entire Boston and Maine rail service, commuter and freight lines, was shut down today because of a labor dispute. Among the union complaints, employees were being forced to work under unsafe conditions. Until recently, no other system of public conveyance was as regulated, as complex to run as the American Railroad. And that was also true of the safety regulations that guided the operation of that system. Years ago, serious rail collisions meant loss of life, like this accident in Swampscott in 1955 when 13 people were killed. But railway fatalities have diminished dramatically over the past 20 years. Construction of new safety-oriented passenger cars, locomotives with fail-safe systems, computer switching, and new equipment have further improved rail safety. The advent of Amtrak and Conrail not only saved bankrupt railroads, but the amalgamation of the dozens of rail lines finally produced a uniform code of operating rules, again improving safety on the rails. Changes in work rules in the 60s, eliminating featherbedding, brought loud protests from individual unions. But the cost efficiency and the absence of any serious safety hazards have produced an admirable track record.
I'm Jorge Quiroga. Today's B&M shutdown also has the overtones of safety. Even though railroad officials contend the walkout is a response to disciplinary action taken against a train conductor, the union charges the real issue is unsafe equipment. The object of most criticism are the Toronto cars. The name comes from the fact that through the MBTA, the B&M Railroad leases 45 rail cars from the Toronto Area Transit Operating Authority. The Toronto cars have been used in both north and south commuter lines for 2 years. What's your opinion of the Toronto car? How safe is it?
As far as I'm concerned, they're as safe as any piece of equipment we have on the property. They've actually been a godsend since we've had them. There's been very few complaints. There's complaints about the seats being hard because they're built somewhat like a subway car. But safety-wise, I don't think you'll find any reports compiled anywhere, either by the union or by the railroad.
It's a master station which operates the complete consist of the train doors. Conductor comes in, he puts his key in, operates the doors.
Is there any way that that door could open while the train is moving?
The only way the door could open would be manually, which we have an emergency cord to pull due to a power shortage, a failure, or by operating it with a key.
Federal rail safety officials say they have had no recent or serious complaints from union officials in regards to safety on the B&M Railroad. The same officials add that last year the B&M Railroad won the prestigious Harriman Award. Within the rail industry, that is like an Oscar for safety. So it would appear that in this safety dispute, the burden of proof is on the union. For Checkpoint, I'm Jorge Quiroga.
The B&M Railroad normally moves 1,000 cars of freight a day, but those cars weren't running this day. Late last night, 400 trainmen of the United Transportation Union went on strike. Seems the B&M took over a spur line in Connecticut a couple months ago and asked its employees to work on that line. The trainmen said fine because that work meant 2 new jobs. But the B&M engineers refused to drive the trains on that spur line. So the railroad hasn't used their union trainmen either. The trainmen want those 2 jobs immediately, and that's why they're on strike. In negotiations today, the B&M said the engineers have come around. They've agreed to work on that spur line, and the railroad is willing to start the trainmen, those 2 new jobs, this Saturday. But for the union and the commuters who ride the B&M passenger trains, Saturday may not be good enough. The union says if they don't get those jobs today, they will strike the passenger rail lines of the B&M at midnight. 20,000 commuters use the B&M trains every day. The MBTA is already making contingency plans to help those riders get into Boston tomorrow if the strike does expand. Late this afternoon, the railroad took the union to federal court seeking a temporary restraining order against a continuance of the strike. The union has said it would honor such an order, but if that TRO is not granted, the union says it will go ahead with its plans to strike these passenger trains, leaving 20,000 Boston-bound commuters without a way of getting to work tomorrow morning. From North Station, David Ropeek, News Center 5.
The MBTA has spent $12 million in state money refurbishing 32 rail diesel cars that have been in service more than 30 years. Each coach cost close to $350,000 to redo, but T officials insist that's only a third the price of a new car, and reworked, these will have the same life expectancy of 25 years. According to State Transportation Secretary James Carlin, this is a major example of new and improved MBTA management.
The service has improved, the number of vehicles on the track has improved, the ridership is up. Everything is very, very positive, and I think the T ought to be congratulated when they do things well. And in the commuter rail business, we're doing it well.
The T still has another 63 rail diesel cars in need of repair. Management has applied for a $37 million federal grant that would pay 85% of the cost of the project. They're hoping the entire commuter rail improvement program will be underway by the end of the year. Still, though, that will not be the end of the MBTA improvement program. While this is a big day for the MBTA's commuter rail service, officials admit that there's a lot of work to be done on the subways and trolleys throughout the system. They're saying that that's going to cost about $3 billion, and they're not promising we'll see any results for at least 5 years. At North Station, Susan Warnick, News Center 5.
The B&M runs 250 trains a day over 8 commuter lines between Boston and points as far away as Gardner, Rockport, and Attleboro. Notices have gone up at railroad crew reporting offices advising the B&M's 1,000 employees the system may shut down after December 31st when the B&M's operating agreement with the T expires. Negotiations between the T and the B&M are continuing, and I asked a railroad spokesman why the termination warnings were posted.
The notices were sent out to be in compliance with our agreements with our labor unions, which specify a 60-day notification in a circumstance of this nature.
Would you say that there's a real possibility the B&M will shut down service at the end of the year?
There's a possibility that a contract could not be concluded and the B&M would not be operating the service. That's correct.
Most of the North Station commuters I talked with today were devastated at the prospect of losing their regular transportation.
Well, there would go my position. Can't travel from Haverhill to Boston on a thumb.
It would make it impossible for me to get to work. I don't have a car, and it's the only way. That'd be a terrible thing. I take it in every day.
The last time the B&M commuter service shut down was last December 5th. That's when the entire MBTA system ran out of money. Roger Goodrich, News Center 5 at North Station.